caught in the crossfire. It's caught in the...
What's up, guys? Lance, the Obscure Movie Guy, coming to you once again with another fun-filled, fact-filled video that you probably won't care about, but we're going to do it anyways, trying to change the world one post at a time. And today we're going to be going over the latest offering from our good friends over at AcroStar Films, getting ready to come to you in the next couple weeks through Bayview Entertainment. Today we're going to be talking about Perfect Soul.
And if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you believe God tests us?
Please don't. I'm sorry.
I found out there was once a coven of witches that lived in Perfect back in the 1600s. When the townspeople found out, they were hung and burned.
God will not protect you, for the very blood that runs through your veins, he considers evil.
Perfect Soul was written and directed by Steve Herman, has original soundtrack and music done by Edward Grant, and has an ensemble cast of returning AcroStar actors, plus a whole slew of other independent actors that are well known in the industry. As far as the AcroStar people go, of course, we're going to have our Beth Metcalf, Ann Myrna, Ashley and Delilah Hefner, Mia Katz. We also see an appearance by Casey Wayne Hupp. And then as far as some of the other actors and actresses, we have Dan Grogan, Kelsey Ria, Tiffany Saggio, Holly Anspaugh. I think that's how you say her last name. Hunter Redfern, Leah Tipton, just a whole ensemble cast of amazing actors and actresses bringing this film to life. Your basic plot summary is basically what you have is a covenant of witches in the beginning of the film that is burnt at the stake for being exposed as witches. We fast forward a couple hundred years to modern day to find that Nikki is got some sort of generational bloodline with those witches, and they want to use her kind of like a almost to like come back and exact their revenge on the families that did them wrong. Not necessarily the same people, but the same families in this town of Perfect, Illinois. But things aren't always as perfect as they seem. Nikki, who is the pastor's daughter, Perfect, Illinois is, this kind of like this religious little town where on the surface, everybody seems like they're perfect and they can do no wrong. But deep within its roots is some generational sin and some very superficial sin on the surface of it all as well. And Nikki begins to question her faith, her family, her friends, and herself. Now, if we run down our traditional checklist of fundamentals for movie making, the movie doesn't have any issues. It's well written. It's incredibly well acted. It's got original music, as I said, by Edward Grant. The videography and cinematography is good. Ashley Hefner was not only in the movie, but she's also the cinematographer. There's no audio issues. The lighting is good. The blocking is good. So from a fundamental standpoint, it checks all the boxes. It is a pretty good film. I don't really have any issues with it from a fundamental standpoint. So there's a lot of really good takeaways with this film. As with most AcroStar films and anything that Steve Herman does, it is incredibly well written, and there's a lot of story development, there's a lot of character development, and a lot of really good character arcs, and that is to be expected from Steve Herman. That is just how he works. That is his process. I really appreciate the fact that AcroStar is always willing to kind of deviate from the norm as far as your type of independent horror. We've seen a lot of the stuff that they've done in the past can be psychological horror with like Desperate Souls or Disremembered. And then obviously you have Return of the Corn Zombies, Attack of the Corn Zombies for stuff that's a little bit more popcorn fun. And they're always working on something that's slightly different. And even if it is something that they've done before, they always try and find a way to deviate it or elevate it, as they did with like Attack of the Corn Zombies and Return of the Corn Zombies, or even if like they came from somewhere, it came back from somewhere. So they're always doing something different. And this was a big gamble going with something like this, because this is not a traditional horror type film. This is very much rooted in some heavy story development and Steve does a really good job of creating this world inside of the town of Perfect, and not only exposing the town as being kind of dirty and perverse on the surface, but it's always kind of been routed that way. So what you get is you have a lot of really cool characters, um, like Dan Grogan and um, Kelsey Rhea as the mother and father of Chloe Lutz, Nikki Strange, kind of being like the central focus, because that is the pastor, the pastor's wife, and then obviously the pastor's daughter. So it's like, if anybody's going to be perfect in the town, it should be them. And the pastor and the pastor's wife are very far from it in many, many ways. So the cool thing with how it's written is, despite the runtime of this film being over 2 hours, the pacing is actually really good, because Steve Herman does a really good job of the overall story, and the characters themselves are kind of multi-layered. So you always kind of peel back a little bit at a time to expose a little bit of the truth of what's going on within this film. And Chloe Lutz as Nikki gets exposed to those truths, and really that's when you start seeing her character development and her character arc. You know, what is it that I should believe? Should I believe, the good book? Should I believe in my parents? Should I believe this witch that is coming to see me in my sleep? Are they dreams? Are they real? So she goes on this wild ride emotionally and spiritually, um, through her character development. And then as far as like the pastor's wife, the pastor himself, I mean, they've got their own issues. Um, it's I don't want to give too much away, because I do want people to really go see this, because it's really well written in the way things get exposed throughout the course of the film. I will say that some of the character arcs and some of the storyline isn't necessarily original, because we've seen some of them played out before in some other religious films. The pastor's kind of a pervert. The wife's not getting the love that she wants at home, so she seeks it in other places. But they did such a good job with exposing that stuff little by little, that you kind of pick up on some things. If you're paying attention, you'll kind of see every once in a while, you might see like a snide look from one character to another, or you might watch something and be like, well, that's kind of weird. Why did the mom have her do that? That's kind of weird. And as the film goes on, these things get exposed more and more, and you're like, okay, these people are out of their mind. And with that kind of like revealing layer by layer, the pacing seems perfect, even though it's over 2 hours, because there's always kind of something little going on with all of the characters. So you get a little exposition in this character, and a little exposition in that character, and a little bit in this one. And really, probably one of Steve's best written scripts. And he's always done a really good job writing his books, writing his scripts. But this one, I really feel like, with the runtime, the pacing, and the way everything was kind of exposed throughout the course of the film, was extremely well done. Probably his best script so far. So far, because he's always trying to do better. And of course, the acting is top notch. Chloe Lutz does another amazing job. I've seen her in a few things now. She always seems to hit it out of the park. She's got an incredibly bright future in front of her from an acting standpoint. Her character obviously had the most complete storyline, because the story does focus around her. But it's not just within like the troubles that she has with her parents and the troubles that she has with these witches. There's also a very good character dynamic between her and Amber, who is played by Tiffany Saggio, and what is going on there. And those two had some really good screen chemistry. And Tiffany does a really good job of playing Amber, which is kind of a character that, like, you don't really know whether you want to like her or not, or if you should like her or not. She's very, I don't want to say she's two-faced, but she's kind of two-faced. I don't have the vernacular to come up with a better way to describe that character. She comes off as kind of sweet, and she is Nikki's best friend, and but she does kind of turn around in a couple points, and wants to kind of take from her and break her heart and kind of get back at her for a couple things. And it's a very interesting paradox that Nikki has to deal with as far as Amber goes. The one person she really thinks she can rely on and trust, especially after all of the layers of the onion are revealed in this town, she absolutely cannot. And another thing I'll say about the multitude of layers with some of these characters is that most of the characters don't have just one thing that you don't like about them. They're not doing just one thing that's kind of crappy. They're doing a multitude of things. Dan Grogan's character as the pastor is a great example. That guy's just. I like Dan as the person. Dan as a person is a great. Dan as the pastor, I don't like. You're not supposed to. It's supposed to be an unlikable character, and he does a really good job portraying it. But like the pastor has multitude of issues. Almost kind of like if you pay enough attention, it's almost kind of like the seven deadly sins. There's going to be greed, there's going to be lust, there's going to be a couple other things in there. Same thing with the wife. She's obviously not getting the love and attention that she wants from him, as his attention is often deviated someplace else. So she seeks attention in the forms of other people. But again, she also has a multitude of things going on, not just the attention seeking, but also at the same time as she's seeking attention from other people in different ways, she's also trying to appease the pastor's perversions, which is an incredible dynamic. So it's like they don't like each other, but like they want to like each other. She doesn't like her husband, but she wants to, so she's going to try and do these things for him, even though they're dirty and scummy. And it's just, it's very, it's like I said, it's well written, it's well executed in that particular character arc. It's incredible how layered you could make a character, which is something you don't often see, especially in blockbuster films. But again, with Steve's writing, you're going to get this type of stuff, and it just adds to the complications of perfect. I don't really have any negative connotations about the film. Now, to be blunt, I was one of the producers on the film, and I'm saying that so that you understand. I'm not trying to be biased towards the film just because my name's attached to it. But I don't really have a whole lot of negative things to say about the film. The one thing I would take away is I wouldn't say it's a Christian-based film. There is some, obviously, because it is about a pastor's daughter and a pastor's family, there is some religious talking points. And the Christian in me didn't necessarily like the way Christianity was kind of written into the film. Kind of puts it in a dark stable, if you will. But realistically, I can kind of get over that because organized religion, for me at least, gets kind of messy anyways. And this story doesn't work unless those people get exposed for what they're doing wrong. I will say that I do kind of backtrack on that a little bit because towards the end of the film, Nikki's basically given the choice, and this is kind of breaking it down very rudimentary, but basically, either Christianity or the witchcraft, in which case she doesn't necessarily choose either or, she kind of goes against the grain of both. So I thought that was kind of cool that, I didn't necessarily like the way Christianity was painted in this one, but we kind of backtrack on that a little bit because we're not necessarily saying that the witchcraft was the way to go either. So she doesn't go with either one. And I think most people can probably appreciate the fact that organized religion, unless you have a really good church, can be kind of messy. And I definitely wouldn't go towards witchcraft because that's demonic. So, but I think with Nikki's character, or the character of Nikki by Chloe Lutz, I mean, I thought that was a really good way to kind of close out her story arc, was not doing it this way and not doing it that way. I'm going to do it my way, and that's how things are going to be. And I thought that was a very good ending for that character towards the end of the film. I'm not going to give away what any of that actually means as far as plot goes because I really want people to see this film. But that was a very proper ending to that character arc for sure, and tied up the movie in a very neat little package. So it's not necessarily open. It's not leaving you on a cliffhanger in any way, shape, or form. It was a proper ending. It was very well done. So again, I think Acrostar really nailed this one. Steve Herman did an incredible job writing the film, writing the characters. Ashley Hefner, great cinematographer. She's pretty much a staple over there Acrostar, and the original soundtrack from Edward Grant. I mean, the music plays to the tension, plays to the ambiance. There's no qualms with any of that. The acting, I mean, Chloe Lutz is amazing. Everything I've seen her in, she's absolutely nailed. And I've seen her in a few films now. I mean, obviously, Return of the Corn Zombies, Blood on the Bleachers, now this. She always nails it. And Tiffany Saggio, great dynamic. Those two had great screen chemistry. There's a lot of tension when there needed to be. And when there didn't need to be tension, they are best friends. So, I mean, just a really well-rounded film. The pacing, like I said, despite its over 2 hour runtime, it doesn't feel like a long movie because there's always something getting exposed from these characters. And it's character-driven, it's story-driven, and I can appreciate that. This is not your typical popcorn film at all. And I love the character development in this one. So props to everybody over at Acrostar. Once again, you guys nailed this one out of the park. It's a great watch. It's a great film. Y'all should definitely be very proud of this one. Steve, keep doing what you're doing. Acrostar has currently got a couple other projects going on. They just released on YouTube. So if you go to their YouTube channel, you can actually look at Not Another Indie Film, kind of like a scary movie type parody. That was really fun. I'll probably do a review on that in the future. That was a really good one as far as a horror comedy goes. And then obviously they're working on, if you haven't been following them, you should, but they are working on The Legend of Tinker Hell. So obviously a play on Tinkerbell. That's supposed to be really good. That one's also got an incredible cast lined up for that as well. So Acrostar, keep doing what you're doing. Follow Acrostar on Facebook and YouTube. Follow Bayview Entertainment. I want to give a shout out to Bayview Entertainment for actually picking up independent films like this, giving them some distribution, giving them a voice, and letting their movies be seen. Bayview's been really good to a lot of people I know in the industry as far as getting their films out there. So shout out to them, and shout out to the guys and gals over at Acrostar for sending me this and letting me take a look at it and do a review. So again, I was one of the producers on it, but I'm trying to be as unbiased with my review as possible. There was producer or not, it's a good film. So go check it out. Like, subscribe, and comment to my YouTube channel. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram. I'll see everybody in the next one.